looked upon as something that is not relevant to the times that we are living in. Yes, in a way, it could be true, but you can imagine that Catholicity has been assured one thing, that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall never prevail against it. I work in the field of addiction, and a famous psychiatrist, Carl Gustav Jung, he also struggled with addicts. In fact, Roland Harrington came all the way from New York to Zurich, stayed with a psychiatrist for a whole year, and at the end of it all, started drinking again. And the psychiatrist was so upset that he has even made a statement in the big book, which is the Alcoholics Anonymous book, that it's difficult to understand this ailment only as a psychiatrist. Later on, he asked the founding fathers how the fellowship was going, and he wrote a last letter just before he died. He wrote a letter to the founding father, Bill W. Therein he said that I have come to realize that addiction is a fight between God and Satan. He said, I use the word Satan not to be misunderstood, as religious circles look at it as a devil. But he said the fact is that there is a constant struggle, constant fight, battle between Michael and Lucifer. So that fight still goes on, and it goes on in such a powerful way that most of the time people who are addicted don't realize that the real formula of getting well, as Carl Gustav Jung has said, spiritus contra spiritu. What is that? He said there's only one spirit, God. But see how we have very cleverly also named alcohol the spirit. And he says the only formula is that God will be able to overcome the struggle that the alcoholics have in overcoming this ailment. It's a no-cure ailment, but there is recovery. So I want to begin this program with a little prayer that I say, because I don't want to be here as Joe Pereira. I want to be here as the presence of the Lord. Okay? So John Henry Cardinal Newman gave us a very beautiful prayer. And we all, by virtue of learning to practice and to live with John Main's teachings and continue to maintain this beautiful community with the leadership of Lawrence Freeman, we just need to radiate Christ. And I say, dear Jesus, help me spread your fragrance everywhere I go. Flood my soul with your spirit and your life. Penetrate and possess my entire being so utterly that all my life may be a radiance of yours. Shine through me and be so in me that every person I come in contact with may feel your presence in my soul. Let them look up and see no longer me, but Jesus. Stay with me, and then I shall begin to shine as you shine. So to shine as to be a light to others. The light, O Lord, will be all from you, none of it will be mine. It will be you shining on others through me. Let me thus praise you in the manner you love best, by shining on those around me. Let me preach you without preaching, not by words but by example, by the catching force, the sympathetic influence of what I do, the evident fullness of the love my heart bears for you. So I am here not as Joe Pereira, but I am here to really be an authentic presence of the Lord. And so I begin this little sharing with the gift that we all are celebrating, the gift of meditation. You know, in India, when the Alcoholics Anonymous celebrated It's 75 years of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was the Class A trustee, and they asked me to give the keynote address. And I told them that, the founding fathers used a beautiful term, sought in the 11th step. It said, sought through prayer and meditation. And then I told them, in India, meditation is the 7th limb of Ashtanga Yoga. So you don't just jump into meditation, you just don't close your eyes and think and take a word. No, it's an act of the whole person. And there are 3 dimensions in this practice. There's the body. If you don't involve the body, your mind will never allow you to meditate. And Herbert Benson was searching for an answer to stress. His colleague Walter Cannon had described stress as the fight and flight response. You either fight or you flee. And we are all in this syndrome. We're either fighting something or we are running away from it, which causes us to get hyper. So he was searching for an answer, so he came to India, and all the yoga practitioners disappeared. They were not ready to go through the test. You have to have authenticity. If you say you are really a meditator, you can't keep your brain in the beta state. You have to bring your brain at least into the alpha state. And some, as we practice, we can drop our brain waves to gamma and even, by God's grace, into epsilon. So measurability today is very important. So when he came there and he couldn't find any yoga people to support his search for an answer to stress, then they told him to go to Dharmasala, where the Dalai Lama was. And he got the answer there, and he wrote his first book on stress. He called it Relaxation Response. Now that is something which Jesus always told us. Come to me, all you who labor and are overburdened, and I will give you rest. So the first component, and now this is a medical person say, that if you want any healing, first learn to relax. Now that is a component of the body. How do we get that done? We get that done by making our body resemble a corpse. And therefore in Sanskrit, the word for that is shavasana. Shava is corpse. So if you can make your body, in whichever position you are, sitting or lying down, if you can just let go of your control of your body and let you feel the pull of gravity, limb by limb, and then body as a whole, you are coming into the state of what he called relaxation response. But then he immediately adds something else. He came again to India. And when he came again to India, he realized that it is not only just relaxation. What has to happen is, he discovered that mere relaxation makes no sense. It has to be inducing what he called later on faith factor. Now imagine a scientist making a study on healing, says first something that Jesus always said, come to me, I assure you that you will find rest. Then he goes on to say that if you really rest, you will remember that you are all right. Like in Zen, we also say that, deep down we are well. And that he called remembered wellness. Now, what is remembered wellness? St. John said in his letter, it's not our love for God, but God's love for us. God so loved. Mother Teresa always began her speech. All speeches of Mother Teresa, you see, begin with God so loved the world that he gave us his only son, that we may have life and have it in abundance. So that is what by God's providence, a scientist of a Harvard Medical School calls remembered wellness. Remember that if you are really relaxed and if you really make your life over to God, then you will feel that you are loved. The first thing I do when anybody comes for treatment of addiction, I look into that person's eye and say, you are good. They can't believe I'm good. Everybody condemns me. They know you're good. The second thing I say to them is, I need you. Because if you know that the 12 steps, the first step is admitting who you are, but the 12th step is having had a spiritual awakening. By following the 12 steps, you carry this message to others. Now coming to the 11th step, where it says sought through prayer and meditation. What a providential thing that the founding father, they were all Christian. Bill W., Bob Smith, even the guy who, the priest who contributed almost 5 of the 12 steps was from the Oxford group. Now Oxford group today is known as Moral Rearmament. And do you know who is the head of the Moral Rearmament? The grandson of Mahatma Gandhi, Dr. Rajmohan Gandhi. So, and when I told him that, sir, our Alcoholics Anonymous took 5 to 6 steps from Frank Bookman, from the Oxford group, he was quite surprised. He started sending a whole lot of people to Kripa. Kripa is my organization, which was set up by Mother Teresa. She pushed me into it. I was going to leave the priesthood. I was ordained in 68. And by the time I was 4 years a priest, I was known as a singing priest and theatre and all. I used to do the choir work for all these Broadway plays and all that kind of stuff. More on the stage than, with theatre then. And so I just got quite disillusioned because I was not a ritualistic priest. So, and 6 of my colleagues, even 19, ordained in 67, 71, 6 of my colleagues quit the priesthood, got married. Those days, after the Vatican Council, everybody felt that the church should allow priests to get married, and since that did not come back, people started leaving and getting married. Okay, 2 committed suicide. And I was really caught between the devil and the deep blue sea. What do I do? Providentially, I bumped into Mother Teresa. I said, Mother, pray over me. One thing about Mother, she was very firm. I don't pray over priests. So she held my hand and walked me into the chapel. And when I went to the chapel, I don't know what happened to me. I broke down like a child. And then she said to me, don't leave. Jesus needs you. How can you reform an institution by leaving it? Stay right there. It will take a long time. It may take even 10 years. Why did she say that? Because 10 years later, 1981, I continued working with her homes for the destitute and also preached retreats to her religious superiors. So one fine day she landed there, and there was an Australian nun who was the superior in Ashadan in Bombay. Andrea knows where's Ashadan there. So Unilever is rebuilding that whole place. So the Sister Cabrini came and said, Mother, what do we do with these drunks? In the night they create such a havoc. Should we give them a night camp? I said, no, give them to me. And that's how Kripa began. And she has always, she gave me her center in Calcutta and came to inaugurate my center in Bombay. And 2020, I built a new center in Meghalaya, which is it's known as the Switzerland of India. Beautiful place. You're most welcome to visit that place. It's a northeast place where Manipur now is burning. They're still burning our churches. This is not too far from there. So there's where I was inaugurating the thing, and at the end I was singing a hymn. And while that was taking place, a photographer clicked photographs of me there At the back, the backdrop was a blank backdrop, but in the photo you see mother there. So I really feel connected with her. Everything that I do, I really feel, because she for me was the one who, I was going through a crisis of faith, not only priesthood, but her meeting me gave me a tremendous sense of belonging to the Lord. And I always tell meditators one thing, that if you have in this world feeling that you are alone, it's a terrible feeling. Most of people who go into addiction of all kinds, they go into addiction because they have not received love. Love is an I-thou relationship. Martin Buber talked about that we are born for love. And if I don't get love, then I find a substitute. And the substitute is always I-it relationship. It may be drug of your choice, alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling, misuse of money, pornography today, it's a huge problem. So this is where a person has lost a sense of belonging. And so we have to come back home. So it's not only addicts, And Vernon Johnson of the Baltimore School of Addiction said that it's a dubious luxury to think that you are not an addict. All of us have some kind of addictive tendencies, and it may be not so dangerous as alcohol and drugs, but yes, we are prone to be addicted because we are not centered in where we should be. Our hearts, said St. Augustine, are made for you, O Lord, and they are restless till they rest in you. So when John Main gave us this most beautiful methodology of reconnecting with the Lord to whom we belong, he definitely gave us something which is a combination, as I was talking earlier, of science and faith. So the second dimension of healing, said Herbert Benson, after relaxation, after remembered wellness, is a faith factor. What is this faith factor? This faith factor has been studied even by scientists today, that when you meditate and when you shut the chatter of the mind, shutting the chatter of the mind is not easy. So you can't just say, today's thought, have you all read today's The Divine Wisdom of Lawrence Freeman? Mm-hmm. John Main said that, when you get distracted, you just avoid it. Well, I think today's science talks about authentically getting away from a very left brain oriented life. The left brain oriented, we have universities for the left brain, PhDs and doctorates, what have you. But where is the university for the right brain? There's no university for the right brain. What is the right brain activation? It's a contemplative brain, where you get away from the objects of the senses and the objects of the mind. And because you are able to get away from there, you are able to go beyond the senses and the mind, which reveal to us the phenomenon. But in meditation, we don't need the senses and the mind, but we have a faculty that opens up the world of the noumenon. I call it Pete Griffiths, the Benedictine monk. In India, he called it the trans-rational. So you don't need any senses in that. If you get into that state of it's mindfulness, but it's also you're able to go to transcend the mind, and that is only possible by the simplicity of John Main's teaching. It's absolutely simple. Actually, if you have to be a meditator, you have to put all your PhDs and high thinking out, and you have to trust this process. And the process is so stupid. Let me say stupid in a sense. For an intellectual, meditation is absurd. Catch any intellectual, catch a mathematician, and ask him to really stay quiet for 10 minutes or 5 minutes and only listen to the breath and the mantra. He says, this is absurd. I can't do it. But only when we do such a thing, something unexplainable to science takes place. And a scientist today, watching these meditators, has boldly made a statement saying to his fellow scientists that our brains are wired to God. When I was the country coordinator for India, Kim Nataraja, have you heard this name? Mm-hmm. Kim Nataraja was a country coordinator for UK. She had a daughter called Shanida. Interestingly, I discovered that she became a cellular biologist, and she has made a study on meditation, and her book is a beautiful book, and she has called it The Blissful Brain. Now just imagine, people ask me, why you teach yoga? In yoga, you go past your 5 sheaths. First is the external body where we relax. Then comes the breathing breath body. And very important, because if you cannot listen to the breath, you cannot be a meditator. To listen to the breath takes you beyond all senses. Then every system has a mind, and we call that the mind body. But when all these systems come together, and they come together by virtue of a meditation practice, we bring about what medical science calls homeostasis. When that takes place, then finally the most subtle sheath, we call that Anandamaya Kosha. What is Anandamaya Kosha? What scientists today are talking about, it's nitric oxide, NO effect. So, but do we know, many of us who started very early with this practice, and we were not supported so much by scientific research, today have got the affirmation from science, and therefore we can easily get a lot of young people to say, come, feel it. I'll do a particular breathing work with you today. It's a particular breathing pranayama. They call it pranayama because it's a breathing exercise. I'll give you the particular breathing exercise, which is the antidote to the major fallout of COVID. What is the major fallout of COVID? We see people dying even today. Those who have had the COVID, the treatment, and also those who have taken the vaccine. So doctors are really puzzled. So many people, they will never tell you what happened. But the fact is that your heart, your kidneys, your liver, and your pancreas are all damaged, or at least affected. But the heart is a big problem. So today, if you ask people who are having some problem in the heart, ask them to check their pulse beat, and they will see that within 1 minute, at least 2-3 times, they have not had a beat, which is almost like getting into arrhythmias. Now scientists are telling us that if you breathe in and breathe out with an equation of 1:2, you restore this, and you get what they call is optimum HRV, heart rate variant. So these are benefits of meditation. We must not separate spirituality from health. I feel that to be really spiritual, your body also should come with you. I'm a firm believer of yoga being the spirituality of the body. And when you practice your meditation with the inclusion of relaxation, with the awareness of being blessed, being loved, and with the sense of the transcendent, that it is no longer I that liveth, but Christ that liveth in me. I generally start always my talk with the beautiful story of Jesus walking into a home where two sisters, one is Martha and there is Mary. There's a conflict there. Both are with the master. One is preoccupied doing things and the other is just sitting at his feet. One complains. And what does the master answer? Martha, Martha, oh Martha, you are worried about many things. There's one thing necessary. Mary has chosen the better part. So, there is a conflict in our life between action and contemplation. But there's a fallacy here. And the fallacy is that you keep on doing and thinking that but the more you do, the better it is. No, you finally end up with a burnout. But the irony is that if you really spend quality time in cutting off from everything, both morning and evening, and I would say 20 minutes, minimum 20 minutes. You keep practicing this, you will be surprised that you are able to dust up much more work than you were doing when you were in a busybody syndrome that ends up in a burnout. So, yes, the meditation has benefits of health. What health we're talking about? Not only physical health, not only psychological health, but spiritual health. And what is the spiritual health? Love. First, it comes by an encounter with God. That sometime, Bill W. of the Alcoholics Anonymous, he was knocked off with this kind of experience. 4 times he was admitted in Towns Hospital in New York by his Dr. Silkworth. Then he called Louise, his wife, and said, listen, I'm discharging him now, but please lock him up. Because if he touches the next drink, he will either lose his mind or he will die a premature death. Bill was frightened. He knelt on the bed and said, if you are there, manifest yourself to me. And the whole room was filled with light and didn't sleep. Next morning when Dr. Silkworth walked in, he told him what had happened. Definitely an encounter with the Lord. And Silkworth made 3 comments. He said, Bill, this is a conversion. The second thing he said was, I'm a man of medicine. I can't use such words. The third thing he told him was, hold on to it. He held on to it and went to be the co-founder of the Alcoholics Anonymous. But he was afraid. How can I tell people that it was only through a Christian encounter with the Lord? So later on, when Alcoholics Anonymous became 21 years old and they had a meeting together, a World Congress together, they called it Alcoholics Anonymous Comes of Age. There Bill stood up and he said, fellow alcoholics, I want to tell you one thing. How did I get well? And he told them the story. So ultimately, the fruit of any spirituality and particularly meditation is you have to encounter the Lord. You have to move from all kinds of loneliness into solitude. Solitude is the gift of meditation, where you really feel that you are with the Lord. And once you get that vertical dimension set, then the horizontal dimension follows. Then you are able to take that experience of Jesus to everyone, irrespective of which situation they are in. But very specially, God calls us to go to the Anavim Yahweh, to the poor. And that's what I think the church has always to maintain, that you have to, don't keep these things only to yourself. Keep on giving and giving and giving till it hurts. Mother Teresa always said, till it hurts. So I developed this work in India, which by her grace and the Lord's grace became the largest facility in India, and the government also gave us the highest award, which the same award that Mother Teresa got, they gave me also. But I've always told them that this award is for those alcoholics and drug addicts who cannot be awarded for they getting all right. So they have to catch someone. Like Mother was given this on behalf of the poorest of the poor, and I was given this for the sake of the poorest of the poor, marginalized because of addiction. Let's come now to the practice. The practice has to make us set aside. We have to get away from the busy body world and seek to come into the here and now. Doesn't take this. To come into the here and now, you have to be able to first relax and then to listen to the breath. The breath is a link between the body and not only the mind but the soul. So from the sympathetic nervous system we have to go into the central nervous system, but always via the autonomic action of the breath. So if you're not listening to the breath, it will be difficult to maintain the practice of meditation. So first learn to relax, then listen to the breath, and along with the breath there is another sense that helps us to be centered, and actually it is called dharana. Dharana is centering. Keating, also the sister meditation group to our group. Our group is John Main's Benedictine group, but Thomas Keating also had this, and he has also given us teachings and seminars. One difference is that Thomas Keating, when he used the word, he does say that you can allow the word to be dropped, whereas the Benedictine method is, John May's method is hold on to the, and I prefer that because dropping the word, you can get terribly distracted. So now what do we do here to maintain a strong practice? What we have to learn to do is to learn to relax, learn to listen to the breath, and then learn to listen to the word. This word, in India we call it the mantra. Now what is this mantra? It's like a password. To use computer language, it's like a password to the absolute. So John Cassian, then after that many other mystics, Teresa of Avila, John of the Cross, Meister Eckhart, cloud of the unknowing always talks about one word. And why? Because then that's what they call pure prayer, not prayer with words, but prayer without words, just that one word. And scientifically they have now discovered that when you do this kind of centering, that's why it is called dharana, centering. When you center your attention on the breath and on the word, measurable things happen in the brain, because of which the scientist says that our brains are wired to God. How beautiful that is. Both in Beijing and in Chicago, where I do programs, both have got brain mapping. And you can see very clearly that who is authentically meditating and who is a distracted person. You can't fool. Science, you can't, measurability is the hallmark. So very often, sometimes people come and say, Father, so many years I'm meditating, but I'm always getting distracted. I said, well, first learn to relax. Then learn to be with your breath. And then learn to hold on to the word and keep returning to the word. Like the Zen master says, keep returning to the breath, it's your best friend. I say keep returning to the word and breath. And that helps us to get tremendous amount of energy. Now this energy is not only, it's definitely spiritual energy, but it affects your health so much. I have worked with meditation on advanced cancer case, and we have got two Catholic oncologists who have checked this whole thing. Third stage colon cancer has gone into remission. Now what is there? What happens when we practice meditation authentically? One thing in yoga which is said is that if you listen to your breath, you get into a pratyahara. What is pratyahara? You develop a disposition of dispossession. You can let go. And tell me, what is the biggest let go that we have to learn? You know what? Forgiveness. When our meditation takes us into the realm of letting go, because we say in yoga, I'm not my body, I'm not my breath, I'm not my possessions, I'm not my attachments, I'm not my ailment, I'm not my addiction, I am who I am. So aham tatvam asi. Be still and know that I am God. Don't become God. There is a God. And you are not God. So when the history of Alcoholics Anonymous was written, what was the title given by Ernie Kurtz for that book? I don't know whether you have come across that book. The title for that book is Not God. All addicts play God, you see. But meditation helps us to put ourselves into the right relationship with our Creator. So with this, let's practice. Now today when you're practicing, if you're getting distracted, use this formula that wipes out arrhythmias. So when you breathe in, you hear Mara, Nara. And when you breathe out, you hear Mara, Nara, Mara, Nara. This equation. And if you want to tie this out, take your blood pressure before you start your meditation. Do your meditation with this equation of 1:2, and then take your blood pressure. You'll be amazed. Medically, this has been proved that this is the best way to calm ourselves, to trust the Lord, and to authentically say, it's no longer I that liveth, but Christ